The ugly paintings matter, the unfinished paintings matter, those beautiful masterpieces that you love, they matter too. But what doesn't is the blank canvas. Hey guys, Lauren here with Lauren Elizabeth Fine Art, and I help beginner through professional level artists reduce stress while mastering the art of animal art. So if you belong to my public Lauren's YouTube channel, Facebook group, you know that we voted on a mousse painting for this month. And so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to teach you how to draw and paint this mousse using acrylics. But if you don't want to draw it, I've also provided a traceable down below as well as a list of materials. Furthermore, for those of you that don't know my story, I battled with addiction, depression, anxiety, and eating disorder 4 years ago, and art was the tool that helped me overcome these things. Now, I'm hearing recently a lot of you say that you want to join the masterclass, but you're just overwhelmed by failing. You are afraid to mess up on the tutorials that I've posted, but you just want to start them. Or maybe you've done a painting on my YouTube channel and you just feel like you're ruining it. So, with all these questions I've been getting, especially recently, I decided to do this thing that I call embracing failure. For the next 15 days, so starting today on my YouTube channel, Facebook group, I'm going to be posting journal prompts and tips that I have learned and also questions to help you kind of work through this. So we're going to step back, just analyze kind of where we're at mentally so that we can start painting again and enjoy our painting. The painting process should be stress relieving, not stress inducing. That's why I made this channel in the first place. All right, guys, without further ado, let's get painting. All right, so all the materials, the brushes, the size of the canvas, and all the paint that I'm using are listed down below, as well as the traceable in case you don't want to draw this mousse. You just want to make sure you transfer that traceable horizontally using charcoal transfer paper. I have a link to show you exactly how to do that down below. And then you would skip ahead just a few steps ahead of here on this video to get started painting. All right, guys, so if you want to draw, let's get started drawing. Now, how beautiful is this mousse photo? This is from Kelsi Camper. I have links down to her Instagram page. She is just such an amazing photographer, and I'm so grateful that she let us paint this today. So we're going to get started with a 4H pencil. I'm just sharpening my pencil. I have a rubber eraser, and we're going to place our canvas horizontally so that we can get started with our shapes. I always say start with your shapes and just the placement of those shapes first. Break it up like that and then go into detail. I'm going to start off by making 4 shapes. An oval for the antlers, and a long oval for the snout, that face, a circle, closer to a circle right below those antlers for the head, and then I'm going to create 2 lines that connect to the head. I'm going to create a vertical line that's just the front of that shoulder there. My goal here is to make sure the neck and those shoulders there are beefy, big. We want to have a really large neck. This mousse has to carry those heavy antlers, so it's going to be a really muscular, thick neck. We're going to draw the beginnings of this mousse beard. It's actually not called a mousse beard. It's called a dewlap, also known as the bell. And then I want to focus on that long snout. This is a little tricky because there are so many curves along the bridge of the nose, and then we want to make those lips not look like big elephant lips. We want them to be thick, but we also want to make sure that it comes out a little bit further for that nose. Now, the antlers, you want to be sure that you have them placed properly in the right spot before going in with all those details around the antlers. That's a mistake that I made. You want to make sure those antlers are up high enough on the head and you'll likely be cutting off some of those antlers. I was trying to avoid that, but you have to be pushing those antlers up a little further in order for it to be in proportion. So make sure you have that right before you go in and make all those tiny little individual antlers. Now you see that section of light brown fur separated from that dark brown fur on the mousse? Well, that's where I created that line that kind of is right behind the eye. So now we're going to create that dewlap or the bell. You likely won't be able to fit the bottom of that into our painting. It's just going to be kind of going off the canvas, just like our antlers here. Which is why I'm going to suggest you draw in the ear and the eyes before doing the antlers. Again, I did that too, and I still had the placement of the antlers wrong, but that may help you just position those antlers a little bit easier when you can kind of compare and contrast in relation to the eyes and the ear. So when I drew in that eye, this is what helped me figure out that those antlers were down too far. I was comparing them to the line we made that separates those two different colors on the mousse here, and it's correct there, and it's also correct on the bridge of the nose, but you see how there is a wider gap between the top of the eye and the start of the bottom of the antlers. So that's what kind of told me that I need to bring up those antlers. You'll see I make small adjustments to the lines I already have. Sometimes doing that helps me to figure out what the next step is. So for instance, here I'm going to draw a line right above the nose. That's kind of that indent right above the nose that we see. I'm just constantly measuring one little body part to another. So seeing how far the nose is from the lips and seeing how close the eyes are to the antlers. Well, here I did it too fast. I should not have gone in with these tiny little antlers, so I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you have those antlers placed in the correct spot. But if you do, take this time now to do that. But I have to redo this in a little bit. I erase it, and then I go again. All right, so here's where I take out my eraser. Did you know that I keep my eraser locked up in this little thing because my cats find them, they smell them, and then they eat them. Ugh, those animals, they are so sweet but so naughty sometimes. And so I have to contain them there because they can't get to them in that jar. So I'm just going to erase the lines that I don't want and then redo those antlers. I also want to make sure I place the eye correctly first. That's really important. And so yeah, let's just work on the lines that we do have, making sure that they're up high enough, or maybe we have to take them down a smidge. So let's do our touch-ups here with our drawing. I just want to say, if you're new to acrylic paint, it's really not a problem if you have leftover graphite drawing lines on your canvas. You can still paint over them. It is a little tricky, however, if you're using lighter colors, like if you're using yellow. Sometimes you get that gray mixed in with your yellow. So I would say try and have your lines mostly erased, the ones you don't want. And if you have some left over, that's really okay. Just make sure they're light and not so dark. So guys, I am almost done my drawing here. I'm just going to finish up touching up the antlers and the eye, and then we'll get started painting. Guys, this is such a fun painting and it's just so awesome. I am so happy with how it turned out, and it doesn't even take that long. I just love it so much. I think I'm going to create this on a larger canvas and really go into more detail into the background. So I'm using Phthalocyanine Blue and cadmium yellow. Very little amount of blue, guys. Such a little amount because we want to keep the bottom area lighter. I planned this out because I knew that this area would be darker around the dewlap, or also called the bell. Looks like a moose beard. But I knew this area would be really dark brown and we'd add some blues, so I kept it light. So keep this light yellow, and as I move up around those antlers, I knew it was going to get lighter. So I went with a darker color, so turquoise and a darker green. So that's kind of how I planned out these kind of colors, these loose colors on the canvas. And when I say loose, I mean you're not trying to perfect it. You're not trying to make sure it's perfectly blended. You're just allowing the paint to do its thing on your canvas. Okay, so let's just loosen up. Don't worry about perfection here. This is about learning and having fun. And this tutorial is always there for you if you want to redo it or if you want to go back to it. So just enjoy yourself, okay? That's the goal here. I want you to see my paint palette as I pull in some more blue and some white to create a more turquoise color right here above the bridge of the nose. So I'm pretty much just doing all my mixing on my canvas, and I'm using a medium flat brush. It might be easier for you to use a large flat brush. So if you're having trouble right now, just grab a larger flat brush, and as I move up, I'm going to add in a little bit more blue and a little bit more white. I also am going to add in a little bit more yellow as I move to the top of the head. So that's going to be more yellow and more blue to make a dark green. But in the upper left-hand corner, it's going to be more blue than green. Alright, so just a color review here. We keep the bottom more yellow with our cadmium yellow and a little bit of Phthalocyanine Blue. We keep the upper right hand corner more Phthalocyanine Blue and yellow to create a dark green. And then on the left hand side we're using Phthalocyanine Blue, a tiny bit of our yellow, and white so that we can make more turquoise and a darker blue as we move up towards the antlers and in that upper left hand corner. Okay? So you will likely have to add a second coat, but I just want to make sure you are aware of colors and just making sure that they're in the right spots. I add that second coat at the very end. So right now we're just focusing on first layers for now. Alrighty, so now we're going to wash out our brush, move to our detail round brush, and we're going to just start with our black. We won't use this too much in this tutorial, but I just want to outline the line for the mouth and then the outside of the eye. Alright, I'm going to wash out this brush, go back to it's actually a small flat brush that I'm going to use, and we're going to work on the darkest tones of our mousse here. So I'm going to use Phthalocyanine Blue and Burnt Sienna, a really beautiful combination for this brown that we need to capture. So once you've got this color mixed up, we're just going to focus on placing this color in the darkest areas we see in our reference photo. So we're going to apply this to the dewlap. We're going to add this behind the ear, right below the antlers, just along the nose where it kind of folds around that flap, the lower lip, and the shoulder. That shoulder area and around there is going to be dark too. So it's better to be generous with this color so that we don't have to go back to it later. We always can, but I really want to apply a lot of this color in those darkest areas because we have quite a bit of it. I also see a bit of this color inside the ear. So there is this light outline around the outer edge of the ear, and I'm going to place this dark inside there. I'm also going to do a similar thing like I did with the ear on the shoulder. So I want that light outline that's hitting it. So I'm just going to do the inside part, but the bottom of it's going to be darker. So it's just the light's hitting the top part of it. So I could even bring that dark brownish blue up a little bit on that shoulder. Alright, it's time to wash out our brushes. We're going to move on to the next color for the antlers. So I'm going to mix burnt sienna and a lot of raw sienna. I want this to be a medium brown because we're working from dark to light. I'm going to paint the entire mousse rack, all the little antlers, and then make enough of this color because we're also going to use it on the back. You'll also notice that I leave an outline on the outside of the antlers right here. So the largest part, I make sure I leave that white. We're going to add a beautiful highlight to that in a little bit. We're going to continue on with this color of burnt sienna and raw sienna. I'm going to paint that white strip that we've left on the back, as well as the outline around the ear. I hope you still have a little bit left of this color because we have a few more places on the nose and around the face that we're going to paint in. I'm going to use this brown to paint in a lot of the nose and just around the mouth, but I'm going to leave a white strip where there's that highlight just in the center of the face, around the eye and the bridge of the nose. All right, so to fill in that white around the jaw and back, we're going to use burnt sienna, raw sienna, and Phthalocyanine Blue. We want to make a dark brown that is darker than the color we were just using, but lighter than the darkest tones we applied at the beginning with our burnt sienna and blue. So this is just a little bit lighter. Getting that color can be tricky, so just add a little bit more raw sienna if it's too dark, or add a little bit more burnt sienna if it's too light. All right, we're going to move on to my favorite part, which is those yellows and those highlights on the face. I am going to my detail brush. I washed out my flat brush, and we're going to mix yellow ochre with raw sienna. I have really gotten into my yellows lately. Your yellow ochre is like my new favorite color, and we're going to add lots of it to the rest of the white that we have left over. And then outline the antlers. We have such beautiful highlights on those antlers, so we're going to start those highlights with this color. Now this part is very important because I add in a little bit of raw sienna to the white that we have in the middle of the face, right here. I add some more raw sienna and just a little bit of less of my yellow ochre. And as I do that, I want to make those curves right, so it kind of curves over the front of the nose and then up towards the eye. And then there's that line that kind of connects them. So getting those lines right, I know, can be tricky. But pay close attention to all those highlights. It's a little bit more raw sienna closer in the center of the face. It's getting a little bit less light, so more raw sienna, and then more yellow ochre around those highlights that just kind of border the mousse. All right, and the highlights that are by the ear, I also added more raw sienna to those. Okay? Okay, so the colors that we're going to be adding from now on until we get to the ear and the antler is raw sienna with yellow ochre and a little bit more of my raw sienna. Now on the lower lip, just right below that black outline that we made, I'm going to add a very thin line, and that's really going to make this mousse look more realistic. Just a tiny subtle line that I'm going to put on that bottom lip. Let's use that color for just that white that I have left over above the eye. Let's finish up that ear, and then we're going to add white and yellow ochre. I'll repeat this again, but white and yellow ochre on the top of the antlers. But for this area, it's just yellow ochre, a lot of yellow ochre with a tiny bit of raw sienna. So before we move on to those front antlers, I'm still using raw sienna and yellow ochre just to capture this outline on that shoulder. But as I move down, I'm going to pull in more burnt sienna to make sure that stays a little bit darker. All right, guys, let's wash out our brushes. It's time to move on to those antlers. Yellow ochre and white are the only colors that I'm using just to outline every single little antler. Now, what's really important about doing these is, number one, you want to keep the width of the border around each antler the same. So you don't want some areas with real thick and goopy and then other areas really thin. You want to kind of keep that even. The other thing is, the area in the middle of the antlers that we can't really see, but we sort of see parts of it, that's going to be a lot of this highlight. But the outer edge, where it's getting just a tiny bit of that light, it's going to be thin, okay? We're also going to use this color right below, in front of the ears, and also in front of the eye. We'll get to that in a little bit. So make enough of this color so we can use it in a few other areas. All right, so I'm still using the same color, yellow ochre and white, and we're going to add those subtle, thin highlights to all those lightest areas on the front of the face. The areas that the sun is hitting, so it's just tiny, thin, light highlights bordering the face, so it's going to outline the face, pretty much the entire face, and really hitting down in front of the eye, and just all those curves there along those bones around the nose. Now, do you remember when I said that the inside of just that mousse rack is the lightest? Well, I'm adding in more white and just a little bit of my yellow ochre. So this is our lightest color here. And I really want to make the inside really light. All right, let's wash out our brushes, and I'm just taking straight black. I'm going to make the pupil finally of that mousse eye. We want to leave a light border because there is just a tiny light gray that I'm going to make right now with my white and my black. Tiny light gray outline around the outer edge of that eye. And we're not stopping there. We're actually going to also put in those highlights as this is still wet. That's really important. It really helps to make those thin eyelashes that are getting really highlighted at the front, but then they kind of get darker closer in towards the eye. All right, guys, we're going to wash out our brushes and switch to our small or medium flat brush. Now, this is a technique I teach a lot of in my masterclass called a wash, okay? A wash is basically where you just use a watered down version of your color and you add a thin layer to that area. So I use Phthalocyanine Blue and lots of water, and I applied that on directly over a lot of the brown, that dark brown that we see. And there is a tint of blue. This is subtle, but it makes a huge difference. So in those darkest areas that we applied at the beginning, around the neck and the jaw and the lips, I'm going to add this wash of Phthalocyanine Blue. All right, so right now I'm grabbing just straight burnt sienna, and I'm going to add that a little bit more, mixing that into my watered down blue. Then I'm going to grab raw sienna. So I still have burnt sienna on my brush, but I'm going to grab raw sienna and start building up those highlights on the back. All right, so this is where I'm going to add that very same color I was using for the back, and I'm just going to apply that to the side of the face. So if you need to add a little bit more of your burnt sienna or a little bit of your blue or a little bit of your raw sienna, that's fine. This is sort of blending that together. We have some wet paint on our canvas here, and I'm just blending that all together on the side of the face. All right, let's wash out our brushes, and we're going to mix raw sienna and yellow ochre, more raw sienna than yellow ochre here. And let's add the highlight on the lower part, right above the eye on the antlers.
It's important here that you know that as you work your way up the antlers, you're going to add in more raw sienna, and then the very bottom is going to be more yellow ochre. More light is hitting the very bottom of the antlers. But as you get more towards the top of those antlers, just at the very top, before it hits to any of those outlines, it's a dark brown. I just washed out my brush because it was getting a little too thick with paint, and I grabbed just yellow ochre. That's what we're going to apply to the top of the back, right behind the ears and up. I'm also going to use tiny dabs of this. You can tell, just dabs, light little dabs that I'm going to add those final highlights around the face. So just along the nose, right around the mouth, and right above the eye. So anywhere that you see those subtle little highlights, we're going to add this color there. I added a bit too much of my highlight to this ear area here because we want to keep the outside dark and then the outer outside really light with those highlights. So to touch that up, I used burnt sienna. All right, guys, so that is it. I'm just going to be doing touch-ups and little tweaking to colors and adding second coats to the mousse and the background. So you can watch me until the end. If you have any questions at all or comments, just leave that down below in the comment section. I hope you have fun with this. Make it your own in this process, and this part of the process is just at the end. It's a great way to add those final personal touches. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.